Hey everyone, it looks like it's getting close there to 4:30. Just for some housekeeping, if anyone is interested in using the closed captioning in Zoom, you will hit the closed captioning or live transcribe button at the bottom of your screen and select live transcribe. If you click on the settings for the live transcribe, you can set the closed captioning size. You can make it larger or smaller if you like to. Also, you can open the live transcription on the sidebar on the right side of your screen. Would also like to ask if you have any questions, please put in the chat and we will hold them until the end of the presentation. And I'm going to turn this over quickly to Alicia.
Hello there, everyone. Now, we just had a slight issue with my notes and my emails have shut down. So I'm just logging back into them so I can grab my notes. In the meantime, I'm going to post the polls for you to get started. While I pull up everybody see that there. You can get started and there is 4 questions. So make sure you scroll down as you're doing it. And in the meantime, I will pull back open my emails to get my notes.
Awesome. And I'm just going to jump in for 2 seconds before you guys officially jump off into your session today and just do a quick introduction and welcome to everyone who is attending. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for taking the time to attend our presentation this afternoon. My name is Tori White, and I'm from the recruitment department at Lakehead University. You've been given some housekeeping notes already, and I just want to add to those housekeeping notes as you're doing your poll. So this is great. You guys can be listening and being interactive all at the same time. Just so you know, as we're going through this presentation this afternoon, all of the attendees, except for the hosts, have been muted for the presentation portion of the webinar. However, we do encourage a lot of virtual discussions and questions, and you can submit those questions through the Q&A feature located at the bottom navigational bar. Alternately, you can use the chat feature for this as well. Please also do note that this webinar is being recorded for future reference and review for attendees and individuals that were registered but unable to attend this evening. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to our amazing team from our Student Accessibility Services Department for a fantastic information and webinar on support services available.
So it looks like I'm just looking at the polls here. It looks like we've got some answers here. I'm just going to leave it up for 2 more minutes. I've got my emails open and my Google Drive. I'm just going to finish pulling up the presentation so that I can get my notes here. Thank you for your flexibility and patience. I am almost there with you. I have learned through this whole COVID experience that I am being tested with patience and adaptability and flexibility. So as usual, I am being tested again as we are doing this. So thank you again for your patience. It's just slowly opening up here. Why don't I come back to the Zoom session, close the poll, and then Rochelle, if you want to, we'll share the results. How about we do that? So what does SAS stand for? Student Accessibility Services. We have that here. The next one, are you aware of the existence of invisible disabilities? And we have, I am aware. Some people aren't, some people believe mental health are considered invisible disabilities, correct? Moving down to the next one. Have you ever thought about functional limitations? Yes, they are overwhelming. Well, don't worry, we will be discussing that in the presentation. I am aware of them, but I try not to think about it and push through. So we'll definitely acknowledge what they are and how we can support you with those. The next one, how different do you think the process of being accommodated in university will be from being accommodated in high school? Completely different, similar, exactly the same, and a bit different. So it is very different. And again, through this presentation, we will be sharing what the differences are and what that will look like. So I'm going to stop sharing the results now. Close off the poll. And then Rochelle, if you'd like to take over and just do the land acknowledgement, and then I can pull up my notes.
So we at Lakehead University respectfully acknowledge its campuses are located on the traditional lands of the Indigenous peoples. Lakehead Thunder Bay is located on the traditional lands of the Fort William First Nation, signatory to the Robertson Superior Treaty of 1850. Lakehead Aurelia is located on the traditional territories of the Anishinaabe. The Anishinaabe include the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations, collectively known as the Three Fires Confederacy. Lakehead University acknowledges the history that many nations hold in the area around our campuses and is committed to a relationship with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit people based on the principles of mutual trust, respect, reciprocity, and the collaboration in the spirit of reconciliation.
Excellent. Thank you, Rochelle. So here is a visual of our staff members. You'll see me down at the bottom. My name is Alicia Johnston. And then we'll move back up to the top here. And you see Nancy. Nancy has joined us in the webinar today. She is our manager. And then next to her is Sarah. Sarah is the admin assistant who books our appointments in Thunder Bay. And then beside her is Patricia, and Patricia is one of our accessibility advisors. And then next to Patricia is Rochelle, who is also with us today in the webinar. And she is a learning strategist and the assistive technologist. And then coming down to the bottom is David. And David is the access strategist and also does the test booking. And then, like I said, there's myself. I'm an accessibility advisor. And then beside me is Danielle Poeta. So Danielle Poeta is the accessibility and academic strategist advisor in Aurelia. So if you're an Aurelia student, you'd be reaching out to Danielle. And then next to Danielle is Leslie. And Leslie is another one of our accessibility advisors in Thunder Bay. And then right beside her is Megan. And Megan is also with us in the webinar today. And she is our accessibility assistant. So moving on to the next slide. In high school, you may have had an individualized education plan, also known as an IEP. At university, we in student accessibility services meet with students who may have had a permanent disability, such as ADHD, learning disability, bipolar disorder, anxiety, or you might have a temporary diagnosis, such as a concussion, or you're having surgery or still waiting for a diagnosis. This is just a brief list. There are many more possibilities. It is important for you to know that you are on your own. You are your own advocate. You must reach out to SAS on your own. This doesn't mean your family cannot help support you by attending meetings with you. It's just very important that you know you are responsible for reaching out to SAS to get your academic accommodations put in place. Make sure to reach out to the appropriate campus. Aurelia and Thunder Bay have their own SAS contact emails. When you email us, you can share your documentation via email for now, and then when we are back on campus, you would be able to bring a physical copy of your documents to us. Now, you're probably thinking, what is a disability? What is a medical condition? Disabilities can be invisible. Sometimes it is assumed that the person in the wheelchair or the person using a white cane because they are blind are the only types of people with disabilities. Not true, though. Just because you can't physically see the disability doesn't mean there isn't one. Looking at this poster, what does a student with disability look like? Take a look at the list. We have some items like brain injury, anxiety, Crohn's disease, diabetes, and surgery. I've had students who are scheduled for knee surgery come see me because they are going to be needing an extension on their assignment, or they'll be missing a test. With the proper medical documentation from their surgeon or physician, I can provide them with the necessary academic accommodations. Also, someone with ADHD may need extra time for assignments and or tests because they are having difficulty focusing. Someone wearing glasses may need the font enlarged for their tests. Someone who has suffered a concussion may need to take frequent breaks. These are all disabilities. These are all medical conditions. These are all eligible for academic accommodations. I would imagine many of you are familiar with Howie Mandel from America's Got Talent. He is an advocate for people with disabilities. His disabilities are invisible. He has ADHD, OCD, anxiety, and with the proper accommodations in place, Howie has been able to proceed successfully with his work and life. So now, once you have received your acceptance letter, you should start to gather your documentation and then reach out to SAS. Make sure to reach out to the appropriate campus. Aurelia and Thunder Bay both have their own SAS offices. For now, we're all working remotely, so you can share your documentation via email. When we are back on campus, you can bring that physical copy of your documentation to our office. You may have a doctor's note, a psychoeducational assessment, a neurological assessment, or a copy of your IEP, or even a completed copy of our medical form. Whatever the case, make sure to share it with us. While we are working remotely, your first appointment with the accessibility advisor will be via Zoom. Once we have returned to campus, you'll be meeting with us in person. At this appointment, your documentation will be reviewed, and we will work together to determine what academic accommodations will be suitable for you. The accessibility advisor will also be available to answer any questions you may have in regards to accessibility services. Now, if you're providing us with a psychoeducational assessment, it must not be any older than 4 years, unless it was completed after you turned 18 years of age. Once you're 18 years of age, adult scale assessments are used. Prior to that, children's assessments are used. Having up-to-date documentation is also important, as changes in your medical condition and/or functional limitations can occur over time. This is why up-to-date documentation is required. Again, if you have any questions about your documentation, or if you don't have any documentation, we can steer you in the right direction to get you what you need. Just make an appointment and we can help you. Now I'm going to explain to you what functional limitations means by giving you a couple of examples to help you understand it better. Let's say you are diagnosed with ADHD. Your struggles or functional limitations might be that you are lacking in organization and time management skills and written expression, which can result in struggling with note-taking. Another example is anxiety. Your functional limitations might be the side effects from your medication. You might have anxiety when interacting with others, and you could have severe test anxiety. These are just a few examples of functional limitations. Now, like I said before, if you don't have the proper documentation, if it is outdated, or you just don't understand what documentation you need to get you started, please ask. We often meet with students to explain what it is they need in order to get registered. We have resources at Lakehead to get you assessed. As well, we can discuss various funding options to have the assessment paid for. Remember, all you have to do is ask us. We have almost all the answers. An accommodation form is different from your IEP. Your diagnosis is not shared with anyone outside of the accessibility services. The only people who get a copy of your accommodation form is the professor and yourself. So let's take a look at what an accommodation form looks like. Here is an example of what an accommodation form looks like. If you have ever seen an IEP, you will notice it is very different. You will see your name and your student number are listed. Below that are academic accommodations for both lectures, labs, placements, and tests and exams. As well, each course is listed with the professor's name. Now, also keep in mind that being registered with SAS is completely confidential. It does not show up in your transcript or degree. So here's a list of some of the academic accommodations we provide to students depending on their functional limitations. Such accommodations as extra time to complete tests and exams, the use of adaptive technology to complete these tests, access to a note taker for class lectures, as well as having access to your textbooks in PDF form so you can use software to read to you, are all some examples of accommodations. Keep in mind, this is just an example of some of the accommodations we can provide, depending on your documentation that we receive. Accessibility advisors are also available to assist with time management skills. We work with students to develop schedules that can help you stay on top of your studies. We can review note-taking techniques specific to your learning style. We have an effective 5-day study plan we can review that will help with studying and provide strategies for when taking your tests and exams. As well, we can review tips for breaking down your textbook into important sections to review. All you have to do is ask for help. We don't know what you need unless you tell us. Now, there is also a grant available to students with disabilities that can cover costs of equipment and/or specific services. In order to qualify for this bursary, there are a couple of factors, one being that you need to be a recipient of OSAP. We can review this in more detail with each individual student on a case-by-case basis. Each semester, you are responsible for connecting with us by following the steps we share with you, whether it is connecting through email, in person, or through our online intake process. You must re-register each semester. We don't assume you are still here at Lakehead, nor can we assume you want your academic accommodations sent to every prof. You need to tell us what you need. If you need an extension on an assignment, or you want to book extra time for your tests, or you missed a test, we have a process for this. We share it all with you in the beginning so you know what is expected. Just remember to connect with us for that support. It is very important that you are your own self-advocate. Take on that role and responsibility proudly. Ask for help when you need it. Reach out to your advisor when you aren't sure. We are not mind readers, so you have to ask us for help and we will be there for you. At university, your student files from high school haven't traveled with you. So it's your responsibility to reach out to us at Student Accessibility Services to share with us the services you need in order to be successful. We only provide academic accommodations. We don't modify the course requirements. In university, you do not need to share with your professor what your diagnosis is. This is all kept confidential with your advisor. As well, information is not shared without your personal consent. That includes your parents and/or guardians. We don't share anything without your approval. Being registered with SAS also does not show up on any of your student records or transcripts. So comparing high school versus university, you are an adult now and have more freedom to make more decisions for yourself. Class sizes are often much larger. You may have a class with 100 or so students in it. Textbooks now have to be purchased versus being loaned to you. I believe you can often purchase used textbooks at a reduced price. Just be mindful that the edition being sold is the edition you require for that class. You also have to be attending class, participating as best you can, completing assignments, keeping up with your readings, and the profs don't check in to make sure you are staying on top of this. It is expected that you will do this on your own. There are lots of differences between high school and university, but there's also lots of supports available. Just make sure to ask. University is a time for you to become more independent and identify what your strengths and weaknesses are. Take note of the classes you enjoy, research the ones that interest you. Get involved in the activities your peers and the university put together for you. Make the best out of your university experience. The time will fly by. Remember to utilize the services available to you, and remember to have fun. We have many resources available to students, such as academic advising to help you with your course pathways, financial support to connect. We can connect you with peer tutors and with career preparation. Student health and wellness have doctors, nurse practitioners, a naturopath, and counselors available to listen and offer advice and coping strategies. Your student union have bursaries available to you. They also have their own food bank, can get you a bus pass, and help you with your health and dental plans. We have our own Indigenous student services with academic support, elders to chat with, and peer mentors, as well as services for international students and much, much more. At this time, we are in the process of updating our Student Accessibility Services website to make it more user-friendly. It's still up and running, so you can still access it. So make sure to check it out. Everything I've shared with you today is on there. I would also suggest you take a look at the transition preparation for students with disabilities and/or medical conditions planner on our website as well. Remember, when you are on our website, to make sure you choose which campus you are going to, so you can connect with the right campus. Now, I'm going to pass it on to Rochelle, and she has a Kahoot for you guys to play.
We do have to have some fun when it comes to these webinars. That's a lot of information to throw at you. But yeah, we're going to quiz you on it, but it'll be fun. Don't worry. So I'm just going to stop sharing this screen. If you have a device like a cell phone or a tablet, you can go to www.kahoot.it. I'm going to get the going to find us our, there we go, game pin. See this? We're going to give you a couple of minutes here to just log in. The game code 9287940. And again, you go to www.kahoot.it. Hello, Laura. Hello, Jules. Welcome. Is it Leona, I think? Madeline, hello. Rosie, hello, Rosie. Hey, I probably almost everyone. Let's give it one more minute. Does anyone else wants to log in? All right, let's begin. True or false? At SAS, we set up accommodations for all students based on their needs. Is false. We set them up for students with disabilities and medical conditions based on their needs. Question. Is to register with SAS, a student must self-identify their needs to our office, set up an appointment with an advisor, send in their medical documentation, all of the above. Well done, everyone. True or false? All disabilities, medical conditions are visible. Well done. What do you need to get support? A note from your doctor, a psychoeducational assessment, a neurological report assessment, all are appropriate documentation, but this is not a comprehensive list. Well done. Question, true or false? It is important to provide current documentation. It is true. We need to know how you are doing now. Is documentation needs to be current because people change. We need to know what your functional limitations are. Assessment on a child scale may not be accurate in university. We need to know that you are keeping up with your doctors. It was a little bit of a question. Question, true or false? During a consultation, an advisor will review your documents, determine accommodations, and answer questions. Is true. Question, true or false? Accommodations at the post-secondary level are based on a student's functional limitations and not the diagnosis. Correct. Jules, you're on fire. What is a functional limitation? Sensory overload, cognitive processing challenges, distractibility, all of the above. Correct. It is also not a comprehensive list of functional limitations that we will discuss. Quiz, which is not an academic accommodation? Extended time for exams, tests, and quizzes, distraction-reduced environment, access to ramps and elevators, use of assistive technology. Good job, everyone. Question, true or false? Students must meet the requirements of a course or program with their accommodations. It is true. We do not modify a course at the university level. Question, who gets to see the accommodation form? Your parents, other individuals involved with SAS, your professors, all of the above, but only with your permission. Correct. You have a confidentiality agreement that you will sign at your appointment as you register with us. True or false? We are not academic advisors, but we do offer academic support. It's true. We aren't superheroes, can't know everything about every program, can help you to succeed in your programs. Quiz. At the university level, it is the student's responsibility to Complete an intake at the beginning of each semester, book tests, exams, quizzes in advance, communicate with their SAS advisor and review their emails. These are all examples of self-advocacy, which you are responsible for. Correct. And let's see, how did we all do? In third place, we have Madeline. Well done, Madeline. Second place, Iana. And our winner today is Jules. Well done, Jules. Thank you, everyone, for participating in that. We're now going to open it up to questions. If you have any questions, I believe we can chat.
We have lots of options. We can do it live if they want to raise their hand. They can ask a question live if they want to be super brave. You can post a question in the Q&A feature of the webinar, which is fantastic because it allows us to open and answer them. Or you can post a question in chat. So whatever you're most comfortable doing, we are happy to accommodate.
We don't need to share screen anymore, so you can see all of our faces. Welcome.
So this is a great time for you guys to have the expert to answer your questions, and don't be shy. So there's a question in the Q&A, and the question is, can you tell me exactly what my doctor needs to put in the letter?
The letter should involve the diagnosis, and if the doctor can give us some recommendations for the accommodations, that would be great. We need to know if it's a permanent disability or if it's temporary. We need to know if there are other kinds of supports that you are looking at from high school. Nancy?
Yeah, I could just add that, you know, for a letter from your doctor, probably the best thing to do would be access that we have a Student Accessibility Services medical documentation form that we encourage students to bring to their family doctors to have them fill out. And like everybody said in the webinar today, that it really identifies functional limitations on there. Then we can provide you with support through academic accommodations. So we have access to our medical documentation form. We can put it in the chat. Maybe we can put the link in that in the chat.
I'm just opening it up now.
Yeah, we can put that in the chat. It is on our website. It's available on our website, but Alicia will add it to the chat, and you can download that into your computer and have your doctor fill that out. That's probably the best form to fill out. And I know the Rochelle and Alicia outlined some other documentation forms that you might bring from your doctor, but like an assessment, psychoeducational assessment. But for a lot of conditions, our medical documentation form is really helpful for us.
We also have a fillable PDF version of the medical doc. So if you need that, just send us an email.
Yeah. I hope that helps. Answer your question.
So there's another question in the Q&A as well. So this is fantastic. So do you need the psychological report to give recommendations, or can I personally contribute?
I think what happens is if a student is coming to university and they've been diagnosed with a learning disability, then a psychoeducational assessment is really helpful for us to determine recommended accommodations. And like was mentioned in the session, when you meet with an accessibility advisor in SAS, you work together so you can have that personal, your contribution as well. And you can share information with your advisor as well. And then the accommodations are determined that way. So using any kind of assessment or documentation we have and working with your advisor to determine appropriate accommodations is the process we use.
So there was another question in the Q&A as well regarding, does the SAS department help to maintain that documentation?
To an extent, we will. I mean, we're not going to share it with anyone, but if you are in need of, say, an updated assessment, then we can do the referral to the assessment. The thing is, right now, because of the online situation, we need you to be in Thunder Bay to do to refer you to a psychologist.
Yeah, we do help to maintain the documentation in that way. Like Rochelle said, we do make referrals to psychologists when a student comes and they have an out-of-date assessment that was done maybe in elementary school or you know, when they're quite young. And so we can help refer you. And as Alicia mentioned earlier, we also help to find funding for that assessment because they can be very expensive, and we want to make sure that we have some funding available for that for you. So just like Alicia said, just ask. Best thing when you come and make an appointment to meet with an advisor, ask all the questions you have about that.
Can you guys touch on a little bit on students with physical disabilities that may be needing some adjustments made in residence as well for housing accommodations, and kind of the role that your office or department can play in that?
For sure. Like Alicia and Rochelle mentioned, you know, all of the documentation that's provided to student accessibility services is confidential. So we can confirm, you know, if an accommodation is required, like by residents or a different area in the university, we can confirm that with, you know, by having your documentation in a confidential file in our office. We're not sharing all of that confidential information with everybody, but we can certainly confirm that and help make those recommendations. It's really important if there are specific types of accommodations required for residents that we meet early and discuss that. That would be a big takeaway from there is reach out to student accessibility services early, you know, as soon as if you're, you know, you're accepting your place at the university, we want to make sure that that those accommodations are in place early, for sure.
The same for placement too. If you have any accommodations that are needed for your placements, we can help arrange that as well. Good
Awesome.
question.
Yeah, you guys can jump in the Q&A as well. There was a question regarding, is this the same for physical disabilities? I think that might have been in connection with documentation that we've already kind of chatted about. So I'm hoping that is. And Madeline, if it's not, please let us know if that wasn't in regards to the physical, to the documentation that you were looking for. There was a question regarding the psycho ed assessment and doctors' accommodations. Maybe around what's needed when, or
yeah, so a psychoeducational assessment is that is required to if a student has a learning disability specifically. A psychoeducational assessment, it can also be students provide that if they have ADHD, but a lot of other disabilities can be identified on the medical documentation form. You don't have to do both. You don't have to do both for sure. You know, sometimes students have more than one disability, so they may have an assessment for a learning disability, but they may have a medical documentation form because they may have a medical condition that they are also experiencing. So sometimes we do get both, but typically we would utilize one or the other. It just depends. Every case is so individualized that it really takes the, you know, reaching out and talking to an accessibility advisor specifically about your individual case. We take each case on a case-by-case basis.
And I did share that medical form in the chat, so you guys can pop open the chat, click on the link, and then the medical form is there. And then again, like Rochelle had mentioned, if you wanted the fillable PDF version, we can share that with you. Just email us and we can share that with you.
And I just want to expand on something Nancy mentioned as well, because it's something we talk to prospective students about a lot, and that's really registering with SAS, whether you think you're going to need those services or not. So, you know, it's much better to go through that process in June, July, get those documents all in place, set yourself up for success. If you think you're not going to need them, that is fine. But the nice thing is all that paperwork is done, all the documentation is done. Maybe you've needed to access some additional funding. The office can help with that. So should things come into play in October that suddenly you're realizing that actually you would like to access some of those services and supports, everything's already in place for you, and it's much easier than a student that comes in thinking, I'm gonna try university without that, right? And I can see there's some nodding heads on the screen. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna set myself up for success. And these supports are there to help you to be successful, and there for you to access, because that's what that's what we want to do. And it's much better to have those things in place than to suddenly hit October or November and realizing you actually need these services. And it sometimes takes a little bit of time to get all that documentation. I'll let you guys expand on that. I probably didn't explain it very well at all, but I know when I talk to prospective students, I'm like,
great.
June, start talking to us in June.
The earlier the better, Tori. You're exact. It's so true, because it's true. Students can get everything prepared, and they provide, if they get in early, set up their accommodations early. Like, you don't have to. You are going to choose if you want to use your accommodations. Everything. If to use your accommodations, all the contact with SAS is student initiated. So if you want to use accommodations for a test or an exam, you're going to reach out to SAS to use them. We have some students who may be in 5 courses, and they may only need accommodations in 1 course, but that's their choice, and that's fine. But they get everything arranged early, and it's set for the term, and that's so important. That's so important. And I think I saw a question in the Q&A about note taking, and our process for note taking, and that's a really good kind of relates to this question, because we have at Lakehead University, when a student has an accommodation of note taking, we reach out to faculty to request a volunteer note taker in the course, and the earlier we can do that, the better. So if that's an accommodation that is approved and supported by the student's documentation, the earlier the better. We can get that going. We have much more success attaining a volunteer note taker in that way. We also look at some note-taking strategies. There may be some assistive technology that a student could use for note-taking. So thinking about that early is really helpful, because we can get those things in place early. So, yeah. So there's one question. It's, can you help me if I am getting an Alberta student loan for my first year instead of OSAP? For sure. So Alberta student loan is like, it's a student loan from the province of Alberta, and I do work with students to access the Alberta student loan bursary for students with disabilities and medical conditions. So similarly, you would you have forms that you have to fill out for the Alberta student loan that so that you're identified as a student with a permanent disability. And then you come and meet with me, and we can apply for some funding for either technology or other supports at the university, for sure. Yeah, great. And I think if we put in the chat, maybe the links to SAS Thunder Bay and SAS Aurelia, that would be great, because students, it's not too early to reach out if you've got questions. We are happy to, set up a time for you to come to meet. Like right now, it's so great because we can, meet virtually, safely with you and share any information. Just even if you're thinking about coming to Lakehead, we want to make sure that all your answers are questions in regards to students with disabilities and medical conditions and the supports that are available for you.
You just want the email addresses, Nancy, or do you want direct to our website?
Yeah, email address is great, like to SAS. And
I just
to
put the
as
Aurelia
Aurelia,
one in. Yeah, I
yeah,
just put the Aurelia one in. Rochelle, you can put in the
okay, yeah.
Thunder Bay one in? Perfect.
Yeah, so if you're going to be attending Aurelia or Access, to email our advisor in Aurelia, and then SAS here in Thunder Bay, and we're happy to provide you with more information, set you up to meet with an accessibility advisor, and you can spend some time learning all about SAS, more about SAS.
Yeah, and the SAS page has I know you guys are working on your website for that landing page, but there's great information on there. There's the booklet of the future student booklet and getting things in place. It talks about documentation. I always send that to students that have questions about short-term, long-term physical and invisible disabilities. So it's a great starting off point to kind of, know what questions you may have and what the advisor may be asking from you as well.
That's another thing we could stick in the chat right now is the transition, the link to the transition guide for students from our webpage, giving them that link, and then they can hop on there and download that the guide, because there's everything that Alicia and Rochelle covered in the session is in that transition guide, including documentation requirements, the process for accessing accommodations, BSWD, the bursary information as well. So it's all in there, and Alicia will put that in the chat, and you can easily download that to your computers.
So I know there's been a few people that have not been able to access links that have been provided in the chat because they're just going to panelists and not all attendees. So I've been trying to repost them into the Q&A. So if you didn't get it, let us know so we can get it to you before we finish the webinar. We just have a couple of settings that we're working with, and we can send chat just to our panelists, or we can send chats to everyone. I've been trying to catch a few things, but let us know if you're missing something.
Perfect. So is that Alicia, is that in the chat, or is that in the question?
Well, it says to all panelists so I put in our link to our website, and then I put in the transition planner. I believe.
I think we got to put that in the Q&A.
So you have to, if you're posting things in the chat, it needs to go to all panelists and attendees. You should have a drop down. Yes.
Oh, my bad. Okay, I think
we're all good.
Well,
see, everyone's learning, right? We're all helping each other out.
We are, for sure.
I can select all. This is good. So let's see if this will work. I think what happened there.
It's still only going to the panelists. Let me see if I can.
It's not going to all.
Did that go to everybody?
Oh, you know what? I didn't choose it. Let's see.
There we go. We got it.
Remember, patience.
Yeah, this is when we rely on you guys to tell us that you're not seeing what we're telling you that we're posting, so we can actually get it to you before we shut things down tonight. So you should have received links, hopefully, via the chat with email addresses to the Thunder Bay office, email address for the Aurelia office. You should have received the booklet.
The transition booklet. Transition to university booklet. That's a good one. Yeah.
So if you didn't get that, let us know either via chat or by posting in the Q&A, so we can just make sure that you have access to that as well.
Yeah, I'm just going back and looking and seeing what just went to panelists. All right. Let's see here.
Good times. Technology is fantastic. We love it. We're embracing it. It's making our brain hurt some days because we're having to figure out new ways of working and enjoying every moment around it.
Right?
That's right. We're all still smiling.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll just see if there's any other questions. Hopefully you guys found the session provided you with information that you were looking for as a future student transitioning to Lakehead this fall, or maybe at a future date. We're so excited to be welcoming students and welcoming our next batch of Thunderwolves, welcoming you into the family. So please take this time to ask us questions that you have specifically around supports that are available for you.
I see there's one more question here. Is an assessment documentation from College Accessibility Services Department valid as well? And yes, we can definitely accept that. Any documentation. If you have documentation, gather it, share it with us, and we'll tell you if we need something updated or not. But yes, we can definitely take stuff from other colleges or other universities. It's very helpful.
For sure. Yeah.
Very helpful.
And while we're in the process to update, we can always put accommodations in place in the interim.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
yeah,
really important to
exactly.
make sure everybody knows that while we're waiting for documentation, we set up interim accommodations. So, you know, you don't have to worry. And sometimes students come from, you know, high school and they've got their IEP, or they only have an IEP and their assessment's outdated, and they're worried that they won't have accommodations put in place right away. We set up accommodations on a temporary basis pending the receipt of a new assessment or your medical documentation. So don't worry, okay? Don't worry. We want to make sure that we're supporting you while we're waiting for that, and that can happen in a lot of instances. So just know that.
You don't have to have all those ducks all in the row ready to go. You can have one or two and know there's a few stragglers coming in a little bit later on as well.
I think I missed the.
Yeah, so there's another question
documentation
about
video.
treating like a medical professional. So one of the supports that we have access to, or all students have access to, is student health and wellness here on campus. And there are medical, there's doctors and counselors available to students. They can utilize their supports from student health and wellness. So that's important to remember. And those referrals, if you need a referral to a specialist, that's where that referral would come from a health professional. The only referrals that we can make through Student Accessibility Services is to a referral to a psychologist who can perform a psychoeducational assessment. That's who we'd be referring students to from our office. Hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and just to add to that, just Julie, as Nancy was saying, we do have health and wellness, which is a different department. We all work together at the university, but they are the ones that provide that wellness services on our campus, both in Thunder Bay and Aurelia. Both of those offices operate a little bit differently depending on the campus that you're attending. Our Thunder Bay campus does have a walk-in clinic available with doctors and medical services and support services and referral services in Thunder Bay. The Aurelia campus has a nurse practitioner, a naturopathic doctor, and other support services as well. And so that would be something that you'd want to touch base with our wellness services on campus to see how they could support you with an ongoing medical treatment. Awesome. Well, we'll just give another minute or so, a couple more minutes. I don't want to rush anybody. I just feel like we've just started having a ton of fun. That game got everybody excited. And, you know, when you first said quiz, I'll have to tell you, my heart went up. Like, I'm like, we're in an accessibility workshop and you're asking me to take a quiz.
It's a Kahoot. It's a Kahoot. They're lots of fun. They're lots of fun.
You're
You're welcome, Julia.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Please reach out if you have any more questions anytime. We've got our email addresses. We're happy to answer questions for you.
And if you're looking for some more information on a department that was maybe mentioned this evening, that's not accessibility direct, you can reach out to the recruitment department, and that's at recruit@lakeheadu.ca. And we can also make those connections for you. Sometimes you're not too sure who to ask that question with too. And so we can help to coordinate that and put you in contact with the right department to ensure that you can have those questions answered prior to starting with us in the fall. Well, this has been fun.
Well, thank you for having us. We've enjoyed it. It's been great. And thank you to my team, my Student Accessibility Services team. They're just wonderful. They're great.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys, my fellow panelists, for providing so much great information on the support services available at Lakehead University, that transition for students coming from the college and university environment, as well as our high school students transitioning into university. So I really appreciate that information. To those of you attending this evening, thank you so much for carving a little bit of your time to spend the evening with us. We hope the information that we provided to you was helpful and will set you up for success on this next journey and chapter of your life. We look forward to connecting with you either through a future event or future opportunity. And we want to thank you. So have a great rest of the evening, and we look forward to connecting again soon. Have a great night, guys.
Night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Night,
Bye.
everyone.